right? This is again a series of lectures that Osensei gave to not Aikidaists, but to members of Masahisa Goi Sensei's spiritual community. So it tends to be a little different. I mean, he's still saying the same stuff, but it's a different audience. He's a bit different. But what I thought we do is just start out today with a chapter called The Essence of Technique. And he's talking about technique to people who are more spiritually oriented. And so I thought we'd just kind of go through some of this and get maybe a feel for what he might have considered the essence of technique. The appearance of an opponent should be thought of as an opportunity to test the depth of one's mental and physical training to see if one is actually responding to the divine will. Okay. When facing life and death in the form of an opponent's aggression, one must be firmly settled in mind and body and not at all intimidated. Without providing your opponent the slightest opening, control his mind in a flash and move him where you will, straight, diagonally, or any other appropriate direction. Enter deeply, mentally, as well as physically. Transform your body into a true sword and neutralize the aggression of your attacking foe. Daily training fosters valor, sincerity, fidelity, goodness, and beauty, as well as making the body strong and healthy. The means of training are vast. From ancient times to the present, even the greatest sages were unable to perceive and comprehend the entire truth. The explanations and teachings of the masters and saints express a part of the whole, only a part of the whole. It is not possible for anyone to speak of such mysteries in their entirety. In training, seek what is bright and vital. Look for universal principles. Seek enlightenment along this edge of devoted training. And this is very interesting right here. Even the greatest sages were unable to perceive and comprehend the entire truth. The explanations and teachings of the masters and saints only express a part of the whole. It is not possible for anyone to speak of such mysteries in their entirety. So right there is kind of interesting. In other words, we went through another section about standing on the floating bridge of heaven. And he really talked about, how he trained in a variety of martial arts, and none of them gave him the answers that he sought. And so he said, where did I find them? Talked about within. So part of that, I think, is that, even somebody who's very advanced can only lead you to what's inside you. And if you get too out there, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to study. But ultimately, that's to awaken what's inside us. The best strategy relies on unlimited responses. Use the one to strike the many. Always keep the mind as bright and clear as the vast sky, the great ocean, the highest mountain, calm and clear. And that's a tip, for maybe the consciousness. In other words, I'm too busy trying to defend myself or reacting or in fear or anger or judgment. And so he's really giving us a tip right there. Always keep the mind as bright and clear as the vast sky, the great ocean, and the highest mountain, calm and clear. Enter into your opponent's mind and guide him along the path heaven and earth have indicated to you. Regardless of what arises, even if you are staring death in the face, strike like thunder, fly more quickly than lightning, gauge the distance physically and spiritually between self and the other while remaining centered. Regarding technique, develop a strategy that utilizes all the elements directly at hand. Don't rely on abstract concepts. Train to eliminate weakness in body and spirit. Depending on the circumstance, you should be hard as a diamond, flexible as willow, flowing like water, or as empty as space. Do not chase after many techniques. Practice one technique at a time and make each technique your own. In other words, the answers he's talking about are inside us. It is always better to overcome an enemy's spirit before an attack begins. Make him gladly abandon his aggression. Even when the entire world is opposing you, don't waver. One in body and spirit, you can overcome oppression. Always remain positive, calm, settled, and full of energy, centered in the heart of nature and attuned to the world of spirit. A good stance reflects a proper frame of mind. The key to good technique is to keep your hands, feet, and hips straight and centered. Always conduct your training in a vibrant and joyful manner. And that was interesting. He's really talking about not technique, but the essence of technique. And he's talking about it to people that are, by and large, not martial artists. Okay. So we are, okay. Yeah. We have a little space. Move that a little further back. So those are things that, one of the things about facing an opponent is we get caught up in winning and the fear of losing, all right? And also fear. And he's talking about cultivating something that is past, whether you're going to be winning or losing, or whether you're caught up in your emotions, okay? Obviously, there's a feeling sense there. Not the words are generally very beautiful, but they're there on a kind of feel basis. So bright, not down, not fearful, calm. Those words have an effect on kind of your physical bearing and also what's going through here. If you're starting to feel the breathing a little more rhythmic and it's deeper, and up out there, the breathing starts to become agitated and high. And the ability to alert, but not paranoid. maybe even sensing a little bit what's behind you. All right. I mean, I'm here and I don't know, I'm going to trip over that. So just getting a feel sense for what's around you. The sky, deep ocean. Those are things that are images, highest mountain. Okay, so those are words that can inspire us up here, but actually feel the effects of those words on our physical motion, our interior demeanor. So just beginning to move. I suppose just remembering the words and maybe somewhat being inspired by them or try to understand them, just to sort of settle with it. Okay? And that's what we might start out with. Because he talks about turning your body into a true sword. Okay, doesn't, so we the camera angle and the lens kind of make this appear much longer than it is, but I have to watch out. I'm going to go this way and break the window. So just starting out. Yeah, very detailed. The grip starts not with the fingers. Grip starts with the palm contact. And here, notice how there's a diagonal grip. And here, for example, holding it, I start to form a hand blade, which is based on the grip of a sword. And on the other hand, I might start out, for example, like clenched fist, but here, and reposition. After a while, when I pick it up, I'm already holding from this grip. So actually, maybe let me see if I can change the angle. It just distorts the sense of things. So you wonder, for sword, you need to do too much of the full body. Okay, but the body itself. Point, base. You have a base. Remember, Osensei said, don't lean down towards the earth. Try to stretch towards heaven. Yeah. Place yourself in the middle, is what he said. So I feel the weight in my feet, but there's it's ground, but there's ground over here and ground over here. There's ground that it's not moving. So it's not a set ground, leaning on the earth. So reviewing kind of the grip. Doing a little bit. I may not draw that deep, but too much tension in the wrists and shoulders and elbows. Okay. And out. And there's that closing motion. Okay. If I hold this way, it's real difficult, that closing motion. I wind up kind of trying to choke the sword. Here, when I close with diagonal grip, I get the double spiral. It's not a choking motion. You get pretty strong, like hitting a tire like that. This is based on a cutting motion, okay? Not a striking motion. And then at the very end, there's that closing. It's not as if it's just the hands out here. And the tendency is to be drawn out by the act of cutting. Your attention stays in the middle. And yet, chin right here, we are focused on that motion. Okay. So that's one during the cut. And what I'm going to do, go back to here. And this is a shallower raise, not going all the way back here. Okay. So the third eye, it's about where I raise. But let's slant to the now. Oh, there's also that closing motion. Remember that closing motion. Now, as you're raising, see the V here and the V here, they align, go back to the middle, not overly here. You reset the hands as you're raising. There's a tendency to lean into the cut. Okay, so a couple of those. We may go back to that. Now the Bokken itself is good because we're learning that closing motion. Let's just say we were to shift to. There's that closing motion. Boom, not. It's almost like the closing is out there. And here, still just the diagonal grip. Diagonal grip. No other thrust, we're kind of more. Okay. Okay. With this, there's a little bit more body motion. The arms thrust straight out, but rotating the hips, the thrust becomes a spiral. So I'm not just thrusting, but if there's a thrust coming in, I'm off the line. And the other thing is the turning of the hips, boom, actually is not just evading a thrust coming in, but it also, boom, powers the thrust. Okay, so that's a very important. Now we go over here. For example, notice, that's more of a sword form, but instead of spear, you see, I'm also doing the same thing. If there's a cut coming in, I want to be off the line of that cut. And switching to the other side. And boom. So right here, boom. Okay. So that work done with the sword can also translate with the movements of a staff, spear. So if I'm here or I'm leaning in, I think of this more like, it's not a striking motion, it's a piercing motion. Okay? It's not a striking motion. If this were a spear, it would have a sharp edge on the side of it. It potentially is a cutting motion. Boom. I always think cut, pierce is supposed to strike, strike. All right. Okay. Okay. And with this, we're shifting again. I'm thinking of it as a striking motion, no? With the sword, there's not as much turn, okay? Now you can't, boom, off the line, off the line, right? And partner, okay, even taking the wrist up there, fingering over here, off the line. Right? There's a lot of good work you can do, with a reflection. Okay, for example, I see myself pulling myself. Now I can go over here, but what it is a little bit is the hips are turning. I may want more space. Motion is not done from the feet. Motion is done with the hips and feet fill in. Then the cup. Boom. Okay. Now here, somebody's raising, you take the wrist there. Boom, over here. Boom. I don't want, for example, right there, to the opening here, or the opening here. Boom. So you can check your own position. Just, there's a lot of work you can do. I think Sadhana Roll did a lot of work with a mirror on one leg and checking his. I don't know if it's Stephen Curry. He has coaches to spot him. Oh. But any sort of skill you get with anything takes practice, but it also takes a positive attention to detail. You're constantly in a process, not a thing. When you start to see things as a thing, you make it into a form, and a rigid form. Okay. Now the other thing is we don't want to be too sloppy. It does happen. Okay. But when you are moving this way, boom, 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 boom. Now we're here, one. Now, boom, at any point, there's that boom, motion here, boom. Somebody coming in, boom, behind you. 2 or 3 attackers go for the eyes, boom. Now I'm using maybe, more sense, but it's like, okay, high level, boom. Somebody coming in from behind, boom. Somebody coming over here, the spear points come back, boom, I can hit here, boom. So, in some sense, you become the sword or the spear, okay? And there is kind of, what Osensei was talking about in that chapter, kind of the mind, body, spirit set of technique. Or then he's talking about put your hand here, or how you hold. Okay, but even here, for example, we are in that diagonal grip. And certain movements, boom, 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 boom. But boom, each of those, boom, 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 boom. Going to have that closing motion then. That takes a little bit of practice initially, right? Okay. For example, I go like this, but that's maybe to the body and then the wrist. It's really two techniques. Boom, boom. And we see the form, but we don't see the boom, boom. Somebody coming in, boom, deflect. They raise, boom, come in, cover your head, change the body here. Right? So those are things that you research, okay? You can research that. You create your own training partner, okay? And let's check in for a second. Any questions on that? So we kind of went through some pretty basic things with the grip, the actual subudhi motion, and some of the changes that you see more with the spirit. Okay? Anybody with a question? Those, by the way, are important. If you see the whole thing as a kata, you kind of get the outer stuff. But you're constantly working, checking your feet, checking the feel in the body, checking where the focus is. And so that makes it also part of a misogi or a bio. Okay? Hikizuchi Sensei was very, very specific about various things. And you heard it again and again and again. And if you got sloppy, the word in Japanese is dara shinai, you get yelled at. It would kind of shame you. Okay. Go, okay. So, it was older style. Okay. So, let's see. There, we're moving along. See, a lot of the movements, movement of the sword in that closing motion is very important. Okay? The grip, even though, for example, you're taking for a Nikyo, you're holding with that diagonal grip. So it has a cutting feel, or it has a piercing feel, not just putting your weight. And a lot of the movement, throwing movement, well, it's like a cut or a thrust. Tojima Sensei said he never thought of throwing people. All he did was just practice swinging his Bokken. Okay. And so the template of the actual body movements, come out of the thrusting, the cutting motion. Okay. And that way we don't get so caught up in twist, grab, weight. Okay. So, that being that, okay. And when you're inside, you gotta make sure you don't smash things. Or, okay, it's part of the practice, right? See, it's not done that way. Okay, I have a kind of a sword. It's not a great one, and sometimes I go out in the yard, and there's stuff out there. There's branches and things, and I cut. Okay, boom, very therapeutic. Okay, not that you're cutting anybody, but just to feel the cutting motion, which is very different than a striking motion. With a sword, the basic suburi, there's not so much emphasis on the body turning. But you're forming a triangle. The body's the base. That's the point. And a couple of pictures of Osensei, he kind of has that sense where, boom, that's going right through you. It's like a laser. And of course, the shoulders are exposed, but boom, go through that. Right? But in certain cases, boom, you are moving the body off. His sword work was oftentimes referenced as shochikubai, triangle, circle, square, shochikubai. Okay? Plum, seed, triangle. Bamboo, circle, circle. Pine, radially symmetrical is the square. Certain movements, boom, boom. And sometimes, you create a wall. Now, for that, use the circle. Get back to the triangle, boom, or triangle. Circle can go very deep. Okay. Now, a lot of ways it's easier, although this is more complex. Boom, 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 boom. You get sort of the interplay of triangle, circle, square, boom, boom, boom. Now here you have what I call the center circle fire water changes. Now, there's the one-handed figure eight. And off of that, thumb down from the top and off from the bottom. Boom, 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 thumb. Down, thumb up, boom, boom, boom. Boom, and see, movements like that, for example, it's a form, but boom, boom. Two movements. Go to the body, right? Take the wrist, boom, come down. So as you begin to, like for example, here to here. Now that's 3 or 4 changes that are not apparent if you just go boom, boom, your body here. You can go for the wrist here, but body first, boom. Oops. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we have these changes. Off of that thrusting motion. Now here again, notice how, let's you don't form the spiral and the thrust with the hands. The actual thrust is straight, but the taisabaki generates that thrust to be a spiral. Likewise, you don't. This is basically a straight cut, but and here you're kind of forming a wall. Well, now you can move off of that. Okay. So those are things that you can study on your own. If you're in a room like this, make sure you don't smash anything. For inside, I use a shorter. I'm swinging the Bokken, I have to make sure that I don't break anything. Okay? All right? And, for example, going through, we call the 30 movement, misogi or gyo. Right from here, you get that diagonal grip. Boom. That closing motion. Now, so we're working not just the movements, but the taisabaki. Now, somebody coming in from behind, cover the head, move in, thrust. This is Ikkyo position. Boom. Sankyo position. Boom, boom. Ikkyo position. Gokyo is more body. Somebody coming in behind you, boom. And in front of you, behind. Somebody raising on you, sweep, take. Gokyo position. Two-handed figure eight. Boom. 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 And learning the movements is the first stage. Okay. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just the rate of 6, 7. It's both up and down. 8. Boom. 9 to the right side. 10. Now, second hand change. 11, 12, 13. Third change. 14, 15, 16. Back to the first change. Now, 17 go is the yonkyo motion. 18, 19, 20, 21. Now, gokyo position. 22. Now, when you grip it, it's a double two-handed figure eight motion. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Okay, good. You might go through that on your own a time or two, and then we'll check and see if you have any questions on that. Okay. Anyway, I was just checking in a bit. Any questions? Go through the 30 movements. One of the things about it is that a lot of people find ritual or form to be a comfort zone. And so, in some sense, oh, good, we're doing something here, we're working out, we're learning it. You take each of those, a part of the misogi is taking each of those movements and sort of knowing it from not just the outer part of it, but the interior of it. Like certain things, for example, here you're forming the triangle. Boom. Just a piercing motion. Circle. Square. Boom. And then the ability to move freely. Triangle, circle, square, triangle, circle, square. Boom. And understanding the Tai Sabaki. And also understanding the closing motion in each of the movements. Like, for example, here, well, I'm waving my arms. I'm going to put more force in waving my arms. This is a more beautiful motion. It's kind of drifty. Even though, it doesn't seem like it, there's the energy of that closing motion in there. That takes a bit of time. And it's constant work. That's what makes it a misogi. It's not a kata. Okay? And there are other ways to define that. Anybody with a question or anything on the 30 movements or on the Bokken work? These are things you can work on. Okay? Now, for example, somebody's coming yokomen, go this way. But when you triangulate the body, like just a tip, for example, I go this way, but when I'm triangulating the body, the arm, the extension lengthens. And that part of it is important. As you keep triangulating, there's kind of an emptiness that comes here, becomes the circle. Sirimi. And then here, the two forces kind of converge. Okay, now you get the square. So those are just things that you can sort of research on your own during periods like this with the pandemic. And you can also just practice. Or without a weapon. And again, I'm using the screen a little bit like a mirror. Now, that's not done in a way that you're kind of self-obsessed, but it's checking posture. And I'm triangulating the body. It's creating kind of a point of piercing action out there. Boom. If I keep going that way, it turns into the circle, doesn't it? And the circle. And at some point, there's a convergence. Okay, now that's the square. Or the square. Boom. Okay. Oops. So those are things, just that you can okay. How much of that, you can do, I don't know. There's got a lot of time these days. Got a lot of time. And, researching those things, the mind Stay sharp. Sharp, no, it isn't like that's sharp. And then, engage, mind says you're this, but the body says, oh, it'll work. Hmm? Notice out here, I've got a certain amount of length, but when I triangulate, okay? In basketball, I go like this. On a defender, I get called for a foul. If I find a better angle, I block the shot. Right. And again, now right about here, it goes into a circle, goes triangle the other side. Right here, for example, we triangulate that. Now, and notice how when you go in, it morphs into a circle. All right. Now, for example, here I become sort of conscious that, if I'm sloppy, I poke myself in the eye. So you can, by doing these movements, your staff becomes your training partner. Right here, if I'm sloppy, I poke myself. So you can research train in any terrain. And so that becomes a challenge during times like this, For example, here I'm sitting in a chair. Notice how, likewise, right here, I'm drop my weight this way, but sort of glide down into the chair. These are little things, but they're movement patterns that are important. So when it grabs your wrist, set to put your weight there, or maybe you create a better lane for the energy to move that way. Those are just a couple of tips. Somebody grabs your wrist, you focus on your movement, which creates an opening. There's always that connection that way. Okay. I just remember sometimes, Hikizuchi Sensei, I'd be at his house or something. He would kind of give me an impromptu gym work on, okay? Or Tojima Sensei would come over and we'd start talking about stuff. And the best stuff, actually, to be honest with you, was not done with a keikoki on. The best stuff was one-on-one, direct transmission. Okay, in the moment, spontaneous. Not we're going to teach Jack that. So, no. In the course of whatever dialogue was going on, it was a training moment. That was the stuff you worked on. Then you're in the class, you worked on that, you worked on that, you worked on that. Then other than that, it just goes in and goes out. Okay? I remember, Ano Sensei kind of, he started coming out again. Actually, he started visiting the States. And, it was like, I think it was Mary Sensei who was talking about Ano Sensei. Says, I haven't seen Jack in 2 decades, but I can tell he's been working on all that stuff. So, that was kind of interesting to hear. He didn't tell me that personally, but, most of these things, to be honest with you, take a certain amount of real attention. Right here, for example, or not for sloppy, but there's a feel. So when you're just almost seemingly doing nothing, Like for example here, that's avatas thrust, but this motion here is a Reiki motion, especially if it's a sharp spirit. Boom. Now it looks like I'm just in the tip of the spear, sweeping up, somebody coming to strike, boom, intercepting, and then on the downward strike, and then thrust. If there's something coming at you, you adjust, boom. Or that little turning of the hips, you don't go over here through that. And there are changes here. Maybe you miscalculate there, but all of a sudden you are able to adapt. Okay? And that was something you got mainly from working with Tojima Sensei or Ano Sensei. Because you train, your technique's going to get better. But you notice that they have that ability. If they flubbed it a little bit, they came back with something better. They're able to adjust with a little movement or something in that way. And that again is, that's direct transmission. In other words, you have to be somewhere there in order to catch there was something real important. There are lessons going on constantly. The pandemic is a teacher. All right. The question is, are we picking the lessons up? Okay. And part of the stuff Osensei is talking about, your mind is clear. There's a lot of bad news, a lot of crazy stuff going on. Economic situation, personal, dojo, whatever, not good. But we're making it. So right now we're surviving. But if you get too caught up in all that stuff, it's like, no, you gotta stay calm and clear. It's training. And so, he uses images in nature, like, the ocean very deep, the mountain, clear sky, like today, it's been a lot of overcast, but the sky is very clear. And, we can say, well, it's talking about nature. Yeah, you might be somebody who loves to get out in nature. Linda Holiday Sensei, she really loves nature. I do too, but not in the same way. Okay? Not in the same way. I have certain power spots. Okay? And, the beaches of Kauai, from Honolulu Bay, Nachi Waterfall, some of the mountains in the Kumano area. But there are spots around here. A lot of times I'll go through. Maybe a little bit of a personal retreat, go through the redwoods rather for about a decade, mid-90s to the mid-2000s. Yeah, that's kind of a shift. I like that too. But a lot of if you look out, and the sky is very clear. What's clouding my interior right now? Can I just be easy with it? I look at how, the depth of the ocean. I'm not caught up in all the surface stuff. And all the chaos that can push me around, mostly or physically. Can it be like that? No. And so that's a different level of training. When you're here and moving these movements, I kind of there are different winds or breezes coming in. And you're directing the winds with your movement. Flurry. 8 or 9 baby winds. Oh. So there's things that I do. The other thing is harmonics, wind chimes. Boom. Where every movement activates a different chime. Every movement creates kind of a rustling sound. And I notice, the effect I have on me here is the body feels refreshed. The mind is clear. There's still things going on out there, but it's kind of a misogi. And more intangible is spirit. Is kind of unfettered. Okay? And we're carrying so much stuff emotionally because of the pandemic and all those things that it really becomes very important to be able to do that sort of, we call them misogi, Osensei's mitoma, shizune. Clear as the sky, as deep as the ocean, as solid as a mountain. As adaptable as water, as flexible as the willow, as substantial as the night, as empty as space. The words have power. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. But there's an interior effect if you go a bit deeper. Your ability to be on point to do that. Can I sit here, be as empty as space? I do it for a couple of seconds, all of a sudden my mind gets kind of, yeah. But we click into it. Can it be as clear as the sky like it is today? I can do it for a couple of seconds, and all of a sudden my mind gets this, but we click in. Be like that mountain. I hold it for a couple of seconds, then it starts up. So reconnect. It's going to be as fluid as water. Maybe as flexible as bamboo. Can then be as solid as a diamond. And can I be as empty as space? He's talking about different dimensions. That's just words. And he said much the same thing in other lectures to Aikido people, but again, he's talking to Osensei's people about more spiritual things, but he's still laying it out. So just having a good posture, that's something that's alluded to somewhere in there. He said it comes from a proper state of mind, but it's not the noisy mind. If we need to, we can shift into a standing mode, or go from that standing mode into a seated mode. I've got a chair, sitting in a chair. So I want to be able to be. So little practices like that. I'm going to get up, my attention's not there, okay. And then question to ask is, where's my center? My center's out there. Okay, it's back in here. All that activity out there. Whew, we are further along than I thought. So let's do this. So that's an example of some games you can kind of play just to keep your own development going. Most of Osensei's words are they're kototama. They have power. They're not just words for out there, but they're supposed to rebound inside us and shape us from the inside. Oh. Well, let's see if one more thing, then we probably should go. The divine cannot be seen by eyes or held in the hands. God, which might be translated as kami, refers to pure spirit. Buddha refers to pure matter. Spirit pervades matter. Matter provides the medium for spirit. To pray means to worship the divine spirit within. Vow to work in conjunction and in harmony with one's inner inspiration. Practice and learn, and reflect on what you have accomplished so far. Like this, never stop practicing, learning, and reflecting on what you have done. Those are good words. But again, they have power, which means there's an effect if we kind of are with ourselves. They awaken certain things in here. Okay, not to be necessarily memorized or whatever, but okay. Anyway, I think those of you that are here, okay, thank you all. Okay, tonight is going to be what? Tonight is Tai Chi. So we have a club meeting tonight. Okay, take care.